I'm always asking myself, what do you like now? What is interesting to you now? And I go and I do that. And I know that when it comes to its completion, I need to ask myself the question again, now what? So when it started off as a phase of me feeling a lot of anxiety about the pressure, I started realizing it wasn't about me, it was what I was going to tell my family and my friends what I was going to do next. It was making sure that they were satisfied with my next.
Hello? Amazing. Hi everyone, thank you for being here. The question framing this conversation is, whose borders anyway? Tell us something about yourselves and share a story or a reflection that you are bringing into this conversation. Simone Momplé, will you go?
Thank you, Kenji. It was beautiful. Hi, everyone. So when Kenji asked us to share a story or an anecdote to have you get a sense of who we are, I thought through the idea of borders and movement and kind of what that means to me in my life as I've transitioned through different phases in my life and lived many different types of lives. The thing that I ask myself very often when something has ended, a season or phase, is the question, now what? Now, in the beginning, it was an anxiety-provoking space because when you finish with high school, it's always the question, what's next? Now what was my thing? And I just fell into the next thing. So I went to university, studied the easiest thing that I could because I hated studying. And when I was finished with that degree, the next question again was, now what? And as that ended, I asked myself, what is the thing that is driving me now? Because there was so much pressure from us, from our societies, from our families, to have the sense of what you're going to do one day. I mean, when you're 5, they ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? That's crazy. So I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up, but I'm always following my nose. I'm always asking myself, what do you like now? What is interesting to you now? And I go and I do that. And I know that when it comes to its completion, I need to ask myself the question again, now what? So when it started off as a phase of me feeling a lot of anxiety about the pressure, I started realizing it wasn't about me, it was what I was going to tell my family and my friends what I was going to do next. It was making sure that they were satisfied with my next. And so when I started leaning into myself more and having other people's anxieties be theirs and not mine, I leaned way more into my purpose and I explored the world a lot. So after I finished my first degree, I didn't know what next, but I became an air hostess, which was a dream of mine since I was 5, and that was the one thing I always told people just to satisfy them. And then I thought, okay, here's an opportunity, let me go and do it. Did that for 3 years, that ended. What next? Then I studied psychology. I just thought that was interesting. What is psychology? How does it work in the world? Didn't know where I wanted to take it next. Ended up finishing my honors degree. Did not know what was next after that. Loved the question. Now what is the next thing? Who do I know? How can I step into a next thing? What do I feel like doing? Teaching. Went into a space at a university where I was educating first year students on themselves, on emotional intelligence, etc. Then now what came again, and I love dance, and I found this interest between dance and psychology, and I thought, well, these two worlds feel like they need each other. I did my master's in dance and psychology, and I completely turned the academic world upside down. And from there, I moved into a space of film. I never studied it, but I was interested in the camera, and I was always editing. So I'm a complex, existing, creative, but let's not just let go of all the labels. I just am Simone.
Thank you so much, that was incredible.
We believe in including the body where the mind is. Otherwise, we will literally be heads floating around all the time. We cannot think our way through life. We have to bring our bodies into the space too.
it sounds like, I mean, you touched upon borders that exist in systems of education, in the workplace, and then breaking down those borders with resources and knowledge and information and different types of knowledge. So the knowledge and information that we don't typically count as knowledge and information, like understanding the individual and understanding the context that they're coming from and how they're entering the space, is really important. And stories, art, creativity, culture, is able to kind of traverse the borders that have been put up by, you know, let's not.
Let's not mention who.
We all know what I was about to say. Simone, can you talk about your organizations, the organization that you founded?
I mean, I feel like in many spaces we have the idea of borders, and even in the space where we are sitting here and you guys are sitting there, there's a little bit of a border. So I'm gonna just be a little bit spontaneous. I'm gonna ask you to just do an activation with me before I answer the question. So I want you to stand up and just reach up, stretch as high as you can. On your toes if you have to. Breathe in and just drop it. Do it again. Breathe in. Lift your hands and drop and shake. Just shake it up.
Shake it.
Okay, look at that. We can look at each other. Yeah. Okay. Then sit down. So in what you just experienced is my work. It's my interest. I don't even think that the words needed to be said. I believe that we have a connection through our bodies. And where you were sitting, your body was still for a long time. When you stand and you activated your body, it allowed you to listen to me again, a little bit more attentively now, I think, to us. So the work that we do, you're asking about belonging, right? I mean, so for me, belonging is always a weird space, especially because I've done so many different things in my life. If you think about belonging for yourselves, like, what does it mean to you? Where do you belong? And because I was traveling the world as an air hostess for a while, that was one question I did not know for myself. When I moved to Qatar from South Africa, completely upside down world for me, I did not know where to be. I did not know how to belong. So I found that I needed to connect with myself so that in every space that I go into, I belong in that space for myself and I feel settled. So in the work that I do with body and movement, you belong where you are right now in the world, in your life, in this room, in the season that you're in. We want them to feel like they are here and you are meant to be here. We want to abolish the things of imposter syndrome. It's a border we put up in our mind. It's the dumbest thing that I've heard. How can you be an imposter in your own body? How can you be wrong? You know, ties into what Jinan's talking about. You can't be wrong. You can't exist as a mistake. So when people come into the space, we have all different age groups, all different classes that come into the space as well. What you get in that space is that sense of belonging, not only with the people around you, but within yourself, because they discover more about who they are through the work that we offer and that we do. Through my movement sessions with guidance, it's all about understanding yourself through the body. Your body tells you a lot more about yourself than you even can conceptualize and put into words. When you have to do something, when you feel anxious, where does it sit in your body? If you feel tense about a situation, you have to have an awkward conversation with someone, where does it sit in your body? It's different for everyone. But if, for example, you are left-handed, you're going to respond to certain situations differently than you would if you were right-handed. If somebody hits you on your arm, you'll realize you limit yourself in the movements that you do in that arm. You have to sit within your body, you have to understand yourself through allowing you that pain or the anxiety or the happiness and the joy to move through the body. Like if you are in a space and you feel excited right now, you want to move and you want to move around, but you will limit that and it will stay and be suppressed into the body. My work is also around embodiment and looking at how trauma sits in the body. How we have experiences that we immediately make unconscious and we push it and suppress it into the body. And then when you have to dance and move, a lot of things come up for you, for many people. And they don't know what to do with it when it comes into the conscious. It's like someone is speaking many different languages in your head and you don't know what to do with that. And that is the reason why a lot of people don't dance or don't want to move. I don't have to exercise. It's because you don't want to deal with what's come up for you. And that's okay. In my research, I looked at that as internal conflict. It's the decision you have to now make as to, am I going to deal with what has come up for me, or am I not ready to do it? And both are okay. But eventually you have to, because those types of things translate into inflammation in the body, illness and disease in the body if you don't deal with it. So yeah, my passion is around helping people to understand that they belong not only in a space, in any space, but also that they belong in their bodies and they belong here, wherever you are. And that is my mission.
I like that.
We recognise that there are creative and cultural organisations that are breaking down borders in really innovative ways, whether they are doing it intentionally or consciously, they are doing it. And the three of you are examples of that. And that everything is connected. You know, there's no point thinking about it in silos. The body, the mind, the political, the infrastructure, the physical house, all of that is connected. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.